The source's ending turns on a teenager's suicide. I won't build a story around that, so I kept the whole engine, the Google search, the new unsuspecting family, the warning with court documents, the phone call payoff, and re-engineered the payload into the protective, satisfying ending your spec calls for. Here's the story. What's your greatest regret? Mine is that I waited 9 years to Google my father. 9 years he spent building a brand new family who had no idea what he was. I grew up watching him hurt my mother. Not once. Not during a bad stretch. It was the weather in our house. He was charming everywhere else. Coached ball, knew everyone at church, and that charm was the wall we could never climb, because who was going to believe us over him? When I was 17, he finally went too far and put her in the hospital, and it stopped being our word against his. He got 6 years. My mother and I moved 2 states away while he was inside, changed our numbers, told no one where. He wrote me letters through my 20s. New name, new town, new man, he said. Found God, found peace. I burned them without answering, and eventually they stopped. I decided the healthiest thing I could do was never think about him again, and for 9 years I mostly managed it. Then one night in my 40s, my daughter asked me for a family tree project, why she'd never met her grandfather. I gave her the child's version, and after she went to bed for the first time in almost a decade, I typed his new name into a search bar. The first result was a local news photo, a charity 5K, 3 years old. My father, gray now, smiling, with his arm around a woman, and beside them a boy of maybe 15 holding a medal. He'd married again. The boy was his stepson. I sat there looking at his hand on that kid's shoulder, and I knew that hand. I knew everything about the man behind that smile, and the 2 people in the photo with him knew nothing, because he'd shed his name like a coat. I didn't sleep. I spent 2 days arguing with myself. Maybe he really had changed. Maybe I'd blow up an innocent family over ancient history. Maybe it wasn't my business. Then I remembered every neighbor who didn't want to get involved when I was a kid, and how much I hated them. I found the wife online. I wrote her the hardest message of my life. Who I was. Who he'd been. I attached nothing from my memories, only public record, the case number, the conviction, the name change, so she could verify every word without having to take a stranger's word for anything. I ended it with one line. I'm not asking you to do anything. I just refused to be another person who knew and stayed quiet. She never replied. Weeks passed. I convinced myself she'd shown him the message, that they'd laughed about the bitter sun, that I'd torn myself open for nothing. The call came 4 months later, from a number I didn't know. It was her. She was quiet and steady in the way people are when they're past crying. She told me that when my message arrived she hadn't believed it, but she'd looked up the case number anyway, alone, at the library, because something small in her already knew. She said things had been starting, the moods, the isolation from her sister, the apologies that came with flowers, nothing anyone could point to yet. She said reading that court record was like being handed a map of the next 10 years of her life. She didn't confront him. She'd learned enough from the documents not to. She spent those 4 months quietly, a lawyer, a separate account, copies of everything, her sister's spare room. Then one Tuesday while he was at work, she and her son were simply gone, the same way my mother and I had gone. He never got the chance to become to us what he was to you, she said. You gave us the before. Nobody gave your mother the before. I had to pull my car over. I was in a parking lot crying about a woman I'd never met, and a boy whose name I only knew from a caption. We still talk once or twice a year. Her son graduated last spring, plays ball, ironically. He knows the whole truth, told carefully, with a counselor's help. And the wife says knowing it made him feel protected, not poisoned. He asked her once about the man who warned us, and that phrase is the only inheritance from my father's side of the family I have ever been proud of. My mother passed 2 winters ago, safe, in her own little house, never found. So that's my regret. Not that I looked him up, that I ever let a monster's peace matter more than a stranger's warning. 9 years. I think about who else there might have been in 9 years. If you're sitting on a truth like mine, this is your sign. Be somebody's before.